Day 350 of the Ukrainian War Map, also known as the Russo-Ukrainian War. Juzzy here, and today is another update as I take a simplified and down-to-earth approach to some of the most important happenings on the ground in Ukraine today. And first of all, we'll start off with the military losses on the Russian side, so we'll head over to that. And as you can see, there is, Russia is currently sitting on 134,100 Russian military personnel losses, which represents an addition of 910 in the past 24 hours, so obviously creeping up per day. In fact, the previous day to today that I didn't do a video for, it went above 1,000. And then we'll take a quick look at the hardware losses. So 8 Russian tanks, 15 APVs, 4 artillery, and 1 aircraft, which I'll mention shortly there too. Then we'll move back across to the map where another day, another bunch of fires in Russia. Now, the first one, there appeared to be a fire somewhere in the Belgorod Oblast of Russia of unknown cause. And then there was a fire at the Lukoil refinery, so oil refinery in the Novgorod region in about 200 miles east of Moscow itself. And this is just one of the many 40 or so Russian oil refineries going ablaze since the start of this conflict. And I think it's important to note that Russia extracts a significant amount of oil per annum, as you may already know. Then it sends nearly all of its oil to its own oil refineries to get rid of all of those impurities, in order to use or produce usable products such as gasoline. Which is in fact why Ukraine has been striking some oil refineries within Russia with drones since as far back as I feel like I can remember, since about June last year. But just imagine a world where all or most of Russia's oil refineries were taken out. You'd be taking out the legs of the Russian oil industry, and they'd turn into a country such as Venezuela, which is sitting on a huge amount of oil, and they can't really sell a cent of it. But of course, with the way economic sanctions are going on Russia, Russia's oil exports have dropped significantly in the past 3 months alone, which has really hurt Russia's economic bottom line for profits for funding this war. Then we'll move into Ukraine. We'll start out in the Donbass again, where the invaders have accumulated significant reserves here. So troops, infantry forces, making for a very complicated recent Ukrainian counteroffensive in many settlements around here, including Crimea. So far, from what I'm aware of, the AFU had to pull back its counter-attack forces in some of the areas here, as it wasn't going to be sustainable to continue some of those attacks in the region. But more information will certainly come out on that one soon enough. Then we'll move down further south into the Donbass, where the theme seems to currently be Ukraine drones and artillery ambushes versus Russian forces' human wave upon wave of assaults. And let's take Bakhmut for instance. So over the past month or so, Russian forces have made marginal gains around Bakhmut at the cost of a massive number of casualties. And even Russian non-state sources are saying they're just appalled by the loss of life of Russian casualties in that area. And as for the AFU, they have confirmed just today that Ukraine is still holding ground, laying waste to invaders, which is said to be up to a battalion's worth a day. Bear in mind, Russia shortchanges its own battalion sizes, so it's more like 2 to 600 as opposed to 600 to 800 in personnel counts. Oh, and also specifically around the Bakhmut region, just on the outskirts, a Russian Su-25 ground attack aircraft was taken out near Bakhmut again. Now, this one actually just happened outside of 24 hours ago, But then it came up on today's Russian losses tally instead, so I'll mention it now. And the reason for this such occurrence is that Russia's assaults in the region have been severely deficient on heavy armor, such as main battle tanks, or MBTs for short. So Russia supplements this deficiency with additional air support for their infantry. You know, all of those human waves I just mentioned. But then these ground attack aircraft all too often are flying low, as they need to, in this contested airspace. But if you fly too low, like this one, well, it got taken out by a shoulder-mounted manpad. And I'll tell you right now, Russia is much in shorter supply of ground attack aircraft than Ukraine is with shoulder-mounted manpads. Then we'll move further down south to Makivka, where something is burning close to the train tracks. Although I do believe it may have been a fire of a high-pressure gas pipe in the occupied region. Then we'll move across to Vuhledar, and Vuhledar, as the Russian failures continue. Now, it's not clear how recent this video is from Vuhledar, but you can see 5 or 6 infantry fighting vehicles, so not MBTs, are being taken out. Now, obviously this footage is about to get too spicy. I can't show the whole thing on this platform, but I'm actually far more interested in this ongoing Russian military tactical mindset of gathering vehicles so close together. Because moments later in this video, as it shows, the 3 vehicles at the front are just being taken out by Ukrainian pinpoint artillery. The Russian approach is, well, it's amateurish, it's untrained, and furthermore, it amazes me because how could they think that attacking in the same place every day, which is pretty much this corner here, so attacking the same place every day from the same direction, around the same time, like how could they think that would yield some sort of a positive or different result for them when Ukrainian artillery is pre-sighted from the previous day and is ready to go? Then we'll scoot around on the map and we'll move to Dnipropetrovsk, the oblast here. Sort of looks like a boomerang. Gee, I haven't said that in a while in terms of its shape. And another singular drone was taken out over the oblast in the last day. And it seems a bit odd, just the one, but it was likely a scout drone. And when there is enough of these flying around with some level of regularity, it's usually a fair indicator of an upcoming Ukraine-wide missile strike from Russia. Of which you may have noticed, Russian large wave salvos or missile strikes have dropped significantly in regularity over the past month or so. And Russian trolls in the comments still don't want to believe me when I say this, that Russia is running low on missile stockpiles. I thought I'd whisper that line for a change. Then we'll move across to some news for the day. So the German Security Council approved the delivery of 187 Leopard 1 tanks to Ukraine to be sent out of existing industry stocks. So the company FFG has 99 vehicles in their inventory and Rheinmetall has another 88. Now, they're not quite the Leopard 2s, which Ukraine will be receiving in smaller numbers soon enough, but, you know, Ukraine will still take them. Leopard 1s, sure, absolutely. Then in some other news, Zelensky has arrived in London for a cheeky trip as he fancies a cuppa with the British PM. Yes, I am terrible with accents, but moving back to the story, where it seems Zelensky just thanked the UK in advance for, quote, powerful British planes. Certainly more to follow, should be to follow on that story later when we get more details. Then for a bit of a funny to round it off with today, guys, my apologies, it's got to be a shorter video. Wednesdays, life just takes over for me. So in this video, somewhere in Russia or the so-called DPR, But it's a bit funny, sad, and bizarre, all rolled into one. So we have a whole bunch of ladies of various ages, young and old, who are just so happy to receive their brand new fur coats from Russia. Never mind the men of the families that have been shipped off to war as cannon fodder. Get yourself a coat instead. Nice fur coat. Although winter is leaving. However, it's clearly a propaganda video as well, because if you tune into Russian news TV, as opposed to Ukraine news TV, bit of a shameless self-plug there, you'll never see a negative story or a story that goes against any Kremlin, Russian narrative, such as stories about Russian lives that have been just destroyed or devastated by this war, sending off the breadwinners to the front lines to be cannon fodder. You just won't see it. And unfortunately, in all of my research, I have found that some of the most brainwashed individuals by Russian state TV propaganda is the older generations, particularly the grandmothers, the babushkas. But will Putin still be so popular when the babushkas stop getting their pensions, or the families of the deceased Russian soldiers not getting compensated for their losses? So I think that many segments of Russian society at some point into the future are going to have to face some harsh realities and some facts of life. Something that a fur coat propaganda video will not fix. So thanks for watching, guys. Please leave a comment, subscribe, hit that like button, and I do hope to see all of you guys there in the next one. Cheers.